I see Facebook. I see the other Facebook. I see Periscope. I see YouTube. I see D Live. Okay, well, that's interesting that that's working now. I see Twitch just saying sending data. That's interesting. Why isn't Twitch working? Come on, Twitch. Come on, Twitch. Just gonna check real quick. I'm doing something on Discord. I'm just really not sure about it. Telling me that my Twitch is offline. Twitch is still sending data. Interesting. It should be working. Try it one more time. Remove channel. Add channel. I don't know if I can do this while it's live. Let's see. Connect Twitch. Authorize. Okay. Come on, Twitch, you can do it. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with having the stream go on Discord. I don't know that there's a I can try in general. I'm going to try typing in general. I'm not really sure how it gets between Discord and Restream. I really am very confused, but look, it's working. It says testing the Restream relay. I'm not sure what channels it works on. That's interesting. But the streaming thing is going. Just barely getting Discord going, so I don't really understand. Shows me sharing my screen. It just shows me, yeah, see, that's not really what I'm supposed to be doing. It should be streaming no matter what, and it's still not sending to Twitch. I don't know what's going on with that. That's okay. I'm going to probably, should I stop sharing? I'm going to disconnect this. This isn't how this is supposed to work. Streaming, dropping in pipeline audio. That's nice. Okay, so now that's working. All right. Well, you know what? I'm not going to kill myself on this. I'll take a look at. You know, it's not showing me live on this other streaming channel. Yeah, I just have no idea. Yeah, it's just showing me. I don't know. I don't care. We'll. Hey, you will. Let me go check my Facebook, make sure this is working. Sorry, it's just 2 seconds here. See, it's working. It's getting kind of hot. I don't know. I don't care. Okay, looks like that's working. So. Let me get my notes. Welcome to Dropping in a Pipeline Audio, episode 87, and this is just to trigger the reverb. So right now I'm running the Motu 896 while I wait for supposedly getting a new Focusrite Octoprix Focusrite Scarlett Octoprix Dynamic. My first one I had, and I only had it for a very short time, the first 2 channels got super noisy. And this kind of happened on another Focusrite Scarlett I had. It wasn't the Dynamic, it was the Octoprix Mark II. So Focusrite sent me or is going to be sending me an RMA to return this first not working one, and then I have another one ordered from Guitar Center. So hopefully I'll have a spare. But we talked about last week. I had the article about interfaces that are also 8-channel to ADAT mic preamps, and it turns out this 896 is actually really good. It didn't work that well for me as an interface. It had some problems dealing with regular Windows stuff, and I wasn't all that whelmed with the USB ASIO real round-trip latency performance. But as a mic preamp, this thing is actually awesome. I'm really actually surprised. It seems to have more gain than the Focusrite mic preamps do. That's kind of strange to think about, but seems to be true. Oh, look, my Twitch is working now. Interesting. Anyway, the 896, it's working great as a mic preamp. I kind of wish Motu would be making mic preamps again. They have some kind of stage box thing, but I wasn't too sure if... plus, it was really expensive, and I'm not really sure that it's what I think it is. But, this is working good, and I'm pretty happy about it. And one of the things I did, there's a video on the AIX DSP YouTube channel where I tested the Motu's combo jack inputs, where they're XLR and 1/4 inch, on a couple of devices, maybe a lot of the devices. It called them instrument inputs rather than line inputs. And, normally these things with the combo inputs, you would press a switch, like on the Focusrite, that chooses between instrument and line input. And, I was sure this can't possibly be an instrument input, especially as it was across all 8 channels of this 896 Mark III. So I did a test. I tested a radial JDI on one channel and the instrument input on the other channel. And I was surprised it worked pretty well. The paranoid in me is going to leave that radial JDI on one of the channels, but I really have no problem using the other one. I think Motu got back to me. I emailed them about this, and I think they said it was 10K impedance. Maybe they said it was more. I should have come more prepared with that. But anyway, it worked fine. I tried it with some passive guitars, and you can check out that video. So if I had written before that I didn't recommend Motu's stuff because it didn't have instrument inputs, or I might have said that, not that I didn't recommend them, but that there was a problem that they didn't have instrument inputs. But no, it turns out they do. So I was wrong. Don't let that hold you up from buying one of these things. It seems to work just fine. And yeah, it looks like Focusrite is taking care of me. It took a little while to get to them, but they're crazy busy. I've watched their interfaces sell out over and over during this Backstreet Boys reunion tour. It's pretty amazing that some companies are doing real good through this, and some companies are doing real bad. And while I'm on the subject, I have taken off my mic stand that I was using, and now I have this RE20 mounted on a shock mount right over my monitor, and I'm not sure if that's working better or worse, but it's out of the way and it doesn't bump my guitar when I go to grab my guitar or put it away. So I'm going to try it here, and maybe the RE20 is not the thing to use. I don't know, but I really like having an RE20. Let's see. So there was an awesome interview on Glenn Fricker's channel with Paul Lonnie, and you're talking about the Megadeth Peace Sells album. And apparently, I guess he recorded part of it. That's what the interview sounded like. But he definitely mixed it. And that interview is a wealth of information. It's just amazing all the stuff they went through. But what was really funny, so if you guys watch Glenn Fricker a lot, you know how much he hates drum samples. And I think anybody who's ever heard that album, there's drum samples on there, right? I mean, do we have to tell you that? Paul Lonnie explained that he was doing the the sine wave trick, where he had a low end sine, maybe an oscillator played from a keyboard or something, and he was probably triggering that with a side chain, and the kick drum was firing that off. But I'm pretty sure there's some samples that you probably could guess which samples they are if you really thought about what year that was made and how exactly the thing was going. And in fact, let me look at some dates here. 1 second. It's kind of brings up the thing, like, when was the very first actual drum triggers done? This is old enough. This is new enough. Think about when that album, I think it was 1986 that came out, maybe. Is that right? But the Wendell was already out. The Wendell was out before the 80s, I think. Probably the Lynn drum samples were out by then. But it's just funny because, and Glenn was a good sport about it. He's like, I just owned myself. They're using samples on this, and let's talk about how great the drum sound is. Glenn, man, you really, you had to know those were samples. You have to, but I guess, who knows? I've heard stuff that sounded like samples but wasn't, and then stuff that was samples but didn't sound like it. So, I don't know. But one thing that came up, and this is it's just like it's almost like one of those little canards, like if you pull the string on one of those dolls, you're going to hear it say, the samples were just used to trigger the reverb sends, or just used to trigger the reverbs. How many times have you heard this one? So if you're around quite a while, you'd hear, well, we didn't replace anything, we enhanced it. And this is like, I'm not going to repeat all of them, but the mix, the biggest lies in mixing, right? The check is in the mail, we'll fix it in the mix, and we just use drum samples to trigger the reverb sends. I forget who said it on this time, but this is one of those ones you hear all the time. I don't think so. I think there's samples on there, and but whatever. Maybe have you ever actually tried to do it where you just use them to trigger the reverb sends? It's not bad, but it's kind of a weird sound. It's not what I associate with this album, but this album is kind of weirdly special. Years later, after this thing came out, I was really trying to learn how to play guitar. I was trying to learn pieces of P-cells. I think it was in a guitar magazine or something, but this was years after it was released. I didn't really pay much attention to the album at the time, but I do remember that it was so big that even here in Hawaii, the Hawaii radio almost had to play it. And that's something that, they were never in any danger of playing any Metallica back then. But this album, it was big. And, it's crazy if you know my personal history. If you would have told me back then, or, even when I was learning this stuff, playing on guitar, that, a few years later, I'd be recording Megadeth, and I'd be recording some of their solo albums. I would have said you're on crack, for sure. But, strange things happen in life. And, this is one of those things where it's not just Megadeth, it's all these bands. But I kick myself every single day because, at the time it seemed like there was just going to be more. These bands were just going to keep coming, no matter what. These big bands, it was one big band after another. Sometimes we had multiple big bands at the same time. And, I just kept thinking, these guys, these bands are going to keep coming. I'm never going to not have more of these kind of bands to record. And, let's see, at the time, boy, we had, I mean, we had like Dawkins going. We had Rob Halford was in there. You name it. If they were passing through Arizona during the 90s, we had those bands. And like I say, it really felt to me like these bands were just going to keep coming. And, you know, the music industry was, sooner or later, I would have my my passing of the torch, where, you know, it's almost like a ceremony, you know, where this generation of engineers takes the reins. And, you know, I think a lot of us had no idea that within just a year or two of that the music industry would be just dead. I mean, it would completely fall out. The bottom would fall out of it. And there never would be a passing of the torch to the music industry itself. I was done. You know, I mean, we were done. You know, it's so crazy. But what I really kick myself about is that recording and music and all that stuff, it's about relationships. And because I was so focused on learning all the time, and I was always so focused on working on the next big band, that whoever was coming, and what I could learn from that, and what I could add, and I never really made relationships with the bands I was working on at the level that I should have. I mean, these are all people that I was real close to at the time, but never really kept in touch with. And I'm like, man, that was dumb. So just remember this business, it goes up and down, and don't keep in touch. You know, I'm bad at keeping in touch in general, but you know, I really wish I would have spent more time keeping in touch with everybody. You know, and especially like Megadeth was so big. I mean, I couldn't imagine that things were going to be that big, but at the same time, I had fear recording. You know, I mean, it was just crazy. So, you know, who knows back then? But you know, I didn't really make enemies. I just didn't keep in touch as much as I should have. Anyway, that was an awesome interview, and you really should go on Glenn Fricker's channel and check out that Peace Cells interview with Paul Lonnie. It is awesome. And so let's see. Next thing, we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be doing some live streams on Halloween, and I had to learn some more stuff about Discord. We use Discord. AIXDSP has a Discord. You can go to our website and you can get on there from there. And I'm on Discord with the Pink Fairies, of course. But I always had trouble with the streaming side of it. And yeah, if you can help, I'm not able to get it to show that I'm streaming when I am streaming on Discord. I've tried it with streamer mode on, streamer mode off, game mode enabled, or game whatever, and I've done the things that all the troubleshooting says to do, and it doesn't normally show that I'm streaming on my profile, and you can't just click it to watch it the way you should be able to when people are streaming. I got a message from Restream that they said that something's wrong on their end, and I've heard from Discord users that we are all waiting on a patch. But I also see people where it's working fine, so I'm not sure what's going on. So I would like, if you guys have any Discord help for me, let me know, because well, it seems like my at least Restream's chat relay is working from Discord okay, which is cool. But yeah, well, it looks like my Twitch is working. So yeah, we're gonna be doing a Halloween stream, and looks like they have vMix. They're going to send me a vMix invite, and we did test this out. So I'll give you a hint in case you get nailed by this thing. You know, we always talk about routing in between apps and stuff. The vMix app itself doesn't seem to let you choose input. So you can actually go to Chrome and the settings, and there's something manage inputs. I don't know if it's global or what, but it lets you pick which microphone you're going to use, and ended up working on for me. But let me see, I'm going to type it in, manage inputs. Nope, no. Let me type in microphone here. But yeah, in case you're site settings, okay. Yeah, I was on site settings, vMix call, and it let me pick the microphone. Now it's saying allow default. It's not. Oh man, I gotta go fix this. But anyway, you can pick your microphone on vMix call if you need to. So that's in case you get super stressed out about that, you can do it. So there you go. So yeah, the Halloween stream, we're gonna be streaming live audio with the restream using OBS, and I just got to remember to set my latency a little bit higher just in case, and it seems to work just great. So that's gonna be awesome. I'm getting better and better at the live streaming thing with the multi-tracks anyway. Made some templates. Let's see. So another thing we're actually doing around here is my cousin is trying to get a song a day released, and we're trying to get as many songs as we can onto the radio. Actually had a little bit of success on there, and it's pretty cool. I actually played guitar on a couple of them. It's just kind of guest guitar spots, nothing big, but it's funny doing that again. And one of these, actually both of them, who knows, might be on the radio soon. And if you remember, I think the first time I was on the radio was either 95 or 96. It was Saturday Market. I had one of my guitar playing on there. I don't know how much stuff between then and now. But I know I wasn't on the radio again recently. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Like when you tell somebody, hey, you're gonna hear your guitar on the radio. I'm like, no, you're not. But yeah, I did. So that's cool. And so you guys that are running DistroKid and all that kind of stuff, we're doing DistroKid. This ain't a paid advertisement or anything. Actually, I have some problems with DistroKid. If you're DistroKid and you know how to contact them, have them contact me or let me know how to contact them, because they never respond to my emails. But in general, the service does what it needs to do, and we're using TeamPay for a lot of the stuff, so you don't have to fight about it, which is really cool. But I'm wondering what what distributors are you guys using? I know there's a couple that do it for free and actually act as record labels and stuff, but it seems like DistroKid's working okay for us. But it's my whole life in a recording studio, when band's finished, you hand them their master DAT or whatever to take to the mastering lab, and you say good luck, and there's nothing you can do about it after that, and it's such a bummer. And then now, really for the first time in my life, when we're done recording bands, it's just the beginning. My cousin puts them on distribution and tries to get them played on whatever it is, radio and TV, movies, whatever we can do, which is really cool. And man, that is awesome. I wish I had that earlier on in life. I have so many regrets in life, but that's I wish we had DistroKid back then, and instead of just the crazy things that bands had to do, just pay crazy money to burn CDs and hand them out at shows, and I'm just handing their money away. It's just crazy what bands used to have to do. It's so awesome to have, even though I have problems with them, DistroKid and things today. So I've been doing a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of putting out songs and recording and mixing and really pushing myself to on the creative end, which I usually don't have much say on. But now we're working very fast, and I'm having to get my creative brain going again. It hasn't been going in a very long time, so it's actually pretty cool. Next thing is more Apple apologetics, man. It drives me nuts. I don't want to, I hate monopolies, okay? And I don't want to tell people not to not to buy Apple products. It kills me. But I don't have a choice, man. There's so many educational videos and tutorials and stuff out there. So many good free products that worked just fine before Catalina, and now you can't even install these things. And yes, I know with Terminal or whatever you can get in there and fix some things, but man, I'm telling you, it's just not worth it. And I hear the apologetics where people are saying, well, you know, it should be signed. The developer should notarize it. Well, you know, the developer might be long gone. These things worked before. Look, I'm not opposed to signing. I'm not opposed to smart security measures. I'm all for them. But let me know how many people got their credit cards hacked because somebody downloaded, a perfectly good 64-bit VST that's featured in all the tutorials out there, where the developer is no longer alive, so can't really notarize it anymore. I mean, who got killed by this? Where's, I understand that stuff can be dangerous, but just because you sign something, oh man, come on, Apple. Maybe whitelist some of this stuff, or maybe you could notarize it yourself and go back and legacy notarize this kind of thing. Like, this is just ridiculous. This wasn't, if people were dropping dead like flies because of this earlier, fine, then I'd be worried, but I don't think they were. And every time I ask people, can you show me where the bodies are, they don't know. So I think it's just a waste. I think it's a bummer, and I don't want to see a single company out there as a monopoly. I don't want to see a single OS. I don't want to see us saying, "Hey, Microsoft, man, you got free reign to do whatever you want because Apple is that bad." I don't want to say that, but right now I kind of have to. I'm sorry, but if you're going to buy an Apple, this is what I would say: get Boot Camp or Parallels or whatever, so that you can run Windows on another partition on it. Then we're all set, Then whatever. If you really can't run the thing, at least if you're running Reaper, you're not really going to have trouble bouncing back and forth between the Windows and the Mac version. So, I'd recommend not to buy any Apple products for the next little while, to maybe send them a message to do something about this crazy artificial gatekeeping. And yes, it's crazy artificial gatekeeping, and I don't care what you say about it. Whatever description you give is just a distinction without a difference. Anyway, I'm always ranting about Apple, so never mind. We had a lot of troubleshooting to do today because I messed up on one of my headphone routing things. And actually, if you want to see, so this background picture here is the how the routing works in the big room. And I actually have it set so that the headphone outs, in the case of the big room, they're coming out of the TRS-2? No, the Q outputs of the PreSonus Central Station. I have them wide out to two different output channels on our Snake out there. Channels B and D. There's 4 output channels on that thing. So I have a Y cable that goes, and man, my brain wasn't working at all. I ended up making a Y cable that had an XLR that went to two, an XLR with both pins active, to a pair of unbalanced XLRs where I shorted the pin 3 to ground. And, I was getting one side of my headphones and buzzing on the other. Or actually, okay, so here it is. Somebody was in there using it, and they weren't getting both channels, I guess, so they hit the mono button, and they were, so everything was fine. And then they're having some buzz, so I go in there, and I go, hey, the mono switch is on, flip it, and then realize I'm not getting one side. And, we had to go do some troubleshooting to work backwards from... I worked backwards from the headphones, and did a lot of crawling under things and pulling wires out and soldering and cable checking, and turned out that I had made the Y cable wrong, and yeah, and I went and fixed the Y cables, obviously, but this is the kind of thing where troubleshooting. It was such a big part of my studio education, and it's kind of crazy. Like, there wasn't all that much hands-on education for me, but I was already really good at soldering and stuff. But what did happen is the guest engineers would just, we're using all this ancient gear, as much as people think all this vintage gear is so cool. No, this stuff was, it's always breaking down. And it's kind of trial by fire where I learned a lot of this. But I remember teaching a lot of interns kind of troubleshooting, working backwards and just basic repair stuff. I'm not a master. I'm not what people think. I can't really fix amplifiers and things like that. And I might be able to find the problems with certain things, but I'm nowhere near the kind of internal electronics technician that I think a lot of people think I am. I'm really not. I'll find the bad device, but mostly what I spent my time on was routing and, constantly building patch bays and things. So this was right up my alley, but this is what you're generally gonna run into. And right now, I do have people that I would like to teach this to, but man, it is not fun with masks. I probably told you I'm starting to wear glasses so that those things fog up. So I'm having a hard time teaching what I learned. And, I think my cousin was pointing out, we got to teach people this stuff. And he's right. And, so much of this stuff was mentorship. And I don't know that we have it anymore. It's kind of freaky to think about. Let me see. We had some questions. Okay, let me get to some of these. So does compression always make music sound worse? With how much belly aching and stuff you hear, then, you would think, yeah. You would think the answer is yes, right? I mean, how many examples of just massively hammered albums are there out there? But no, we use compressors for all kinds of things. We don't just, in fact, I think people barely ever use compressors to, well, I'm not going to say barely ever, but less often than you would think do people use compressors to actually control the level. When they talk about technical compressors, they're always like, I use a compressor so that the quiet parts aren't too quiet and the loud parts aren't too loud. But how often is that even true? Most of the time, I think people use compressors to achieve a certain kind of sound. Like they're actually changing the shape of things. I really think about kick drums and snare drums. I mean, I know there's so much more. Of course, vocals, duh, and your overall mix. Though I still am not good at mixed bus compression. I'll admit that. That was always my mastering engineer's problem. I do put compressors on the mix bus. Oops, sorry. Nowadays and mix into them, but I'm just barely getting there. Sorry. But no, so in real life, no, compression doesn't always make music sound worse. It is a shaping tool that you might use to create the kind of sound that you're after. But yeah, it does get abused quite a bit. But this is all subjective, right? I mean, so okay. So again, with that routing thing, you see, what is a game-changing piece of music equipment for recording? Depending what you have, a game-changing piece of music equipment, and I'll say it till I turn blue, a soldering iron. Get a soldering iron. Make sure you got a soldering iron. The other one is I still have from the 90s. I mean, actually used on that Megadeth albums and solo recordings and stuff like Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman. I still have I think it's a Whirlwind or Rapco. Where is that thing? It's a Cable Doctor. But nowadays Behringer makes one that's, I guess, is way better. It's a cable checker, but it has a lot more functions, and it has a tone generator. Man, I keep forgetting to buy that thing every time I order from Sweetwater or something. I just got to buy one. I think there's something else I'm supposed to buy. If I think of it, I'm going to order that, and I'm going to quit messing around with that. Yeah, that would be a game-changing piece of music equipment, because if your stuff is broken and you can't test it, especially now that there's not a Radio Shack where you can get a good cheap multimeter. Those are your game-changing pieces of equipment, I think. Soldering iron, cable checker. If you can get a multimeter, get a multimeter. I still have a Radio Shack one, but I'm sure there's some good cheap ones out there now. In fact, if anybody wants to give some names of, I know we should all own Flukes or whatever, right? But just in case you can't get the Fluke, what are some good ones? Let me know. Okay. Let's see. Why are sound cards still being made and sold as separate PC component? Do sound cards still provide better audio quality than the built-in audio chips on motherboards? You know, that second question, I'm not sure. And you know me, I'm like, test it. Every time that I try these things, they end up noisy and distorted, but who knows if I'm just interfacing them wrong or whatever. So I'm not sure about the audio quality of the built-in audio chips on motherboards. I have a feeling that they're going to be noisy no matter what because of where they are, where the mic preamps are and everything. But as to why they're made and sold as a separate PC component, let's say in case of me where I need 32 inputs, I don't think you're going to see very many laptops come with an onboard sound card with 32 inputs. You might want mic preamps, instrument inputs. You want XLR jacks. You just all the things that you need for regular interfacing on a professional or semi-professional level. They're not in the kind of onboard sound cards that come with computers. They could. A lot of them have SPDIF now, so at least you got 2 channels of pretty good stuff. And there's no reason why these guys couldn't make a good ASIO driver. I'm actually surprised. I think Realtek actually did make some good ASIO drivers. I'm not positive, but I think that's the case. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, just think of all the different things you're going to be plugging into an interface and all the different features you need. Most people, when they buy a laptop, aren't going to want to spend another $500,000-$600,000 whatever dollars on stuff that they're never going to use. They just need a microphone input and a headphone output for the most part, for most people. Is it valid that audio equipment from the 1970s sounds better than modern equipment? Well, you know my stance. Well, first of all, it's subjective. You could say what's better and what's worse. Like maybe it distorts something in a good way, or maybe it distorts something in a horrible way. Generally, I will take the less distorted, less noisy gear with the flatter frequency response and the higher bandwidth. And that's going to be modern gear. All things being equal, you could make really good gear back in the day, but I don't think you could make it as good as you can now. And especially not with the consistency that you can now. I mean, it's ridiculous. How many shows have we devoted to actually testing these kind of claims, and even the cheap junk from nowadays is pretty good. In some ways, a lot better than measurably anyway, than things you could get back then. Of course, there's always going to be the people who say that you can't measure some unmeasurable unobtainium or whatever. But, if in the reality-based community, no. It's not valid that audio equipment from the 70s sounds better than modern equipment. There's a lot of people who want to use that stuff, and that's fine. But and look at me. I'm running the radial JDI. How old is that? The old Transformer Direct box, man. Get out of here. But I run it. So who knows? But no, don't kill yourself trying to get some vintage magic. There's no magic there. It could be different, but it's not going to be better. On a related question, why do many large digital recording studios still feature huge analog consoles? Again, there's a lot of people who think that they sound better. There's a lot of people who are used to using them and can be very, very productive on them compared to working just on a DAW with a mouse or whatever. I'm not one of them. I was a person who grew up on SSLs and Neves, as big as they came. And I'll do anything not to ever have to use those things again. Hated them. I loved them at the time, but as soon as reliable stuff started coming out, consistent, or being able to just draw in automation with the mouse or see your waveforms. I just can't go back. But there are plenty of people who do very, very, very good work, much better than me, on those ancient analog consoles still. So, and another thing is, some studios, the clients expect to see those consoles. So, those are some reasons why. So, the clients ask for them. They might be better on them. Could be magical thinking a lot of times, but could just be that's the tools the guys know how to use, and that's what you're going to use. What are essential microphones needed for home recording of vocals, acoustic guitar, drums, and bass? Again, I hate to be a stuck record. You can't go wrong with the 57s and 58s. When you talk about essential microphones, I would like to see a couple multi-pattern, at least a stereo pair of multi-pattern condenser microphones. I mean, really, yes, there are some problems with condensers compared to dynamics. You're going to need phantom power. They tend to be a little bit too sensitive for certain things, but some of them have pads on them. I think that the CAD, what do you call the CAD M179s, the pairs of those things, those are still awesome and cheap. There's tons of good cheap condenser microphones out there, multi-pattern ones. I say multi-pattern because you can do a lot more with Omni and cardioid and figure eight. If you can change all those things. Plus, you can get into the world of all kinds of stereo multi-pattern techniques like mid-side and Blumline. Yeah, sorry, there's drums going on in the background. That's how it is. It's a working recording studio, so there you go. But for the recording of vocals, acoustic guitars, especially acoustic guitars, I'd like to see a stereo pair of multi-pattern condensers. Not too long ago, I bought a pair of those warm FET 47 Juniors. I don't know why I did that, but I got to try them on acoustic the other day. It sounded great, so I'm not going to complain. Drums, man, if you're going to be recording drums, you could just do a stereo pair, and that could turn out great. And if you're asking, maybe you're at a level where all you need is those pair of mics, or maybe that's all you need no matter what. But generally in drums, like I have like 13 mics on my drum set, so you're going to need some more for drums. But, well, you're not going to need them, but it's still, yeah, if you got a stereo pair of multi-pattern condensers, I think you can do a lot. And when it comes to bass, I know I'm going to get flack for this. I would run the bass DI, maybe out an amp output or whatever, but generally your direct box or instrument input is going to be great for bass guitar. And I wouldn't bother miking it. I know, but whatever. Okay, next. Does Reaper support VST? Yes, it does. Reaper supports DirectX, which is kind of crazy. I think it still does. VST, audio units, and yeah, so it supports all the biggies, except for the locked ones. And finally, how does sidechain compression work in audio production? And so we were talking about sidechain earlier on the Megadeth thing, where they're probably sidechaining a sine wave, like low frequency sine wave, to the kick drum through a gate. Okay, so basically a sidechain is going to be a control signal. It's going to be a signal that tells a device when and how extreme, how hard, how much to affect the incoming audio. Let me say this a different way. That one of the most popular ones out there, especially if you're like an EDM fan, is the bass guitar or the bass instrument, whatever is carrying the low frequency music, is controlled by the kick drum or bass drum, in a way that whenever the bass drum hits, it turns down the bass instrument enough, somewhat. Sometimes it leaves it down for a long time to give you the illusion of power, of extreme volume. Sometimes it just cuts it right when it's hitting, And so it kind of just blends in there, but it keeps it from muddying up and doubling up. But it kind of gives you a sound. It's especially in EDM music, you really hear kind of you kind of feel it. It's like a heartbeat, you know. But we do it in regular in regular. We do it in other styles of music as well. I mean, some of the earliest bits of Reaper development were spent in the sidechain. So in the case of let's talk about that kick sidechains bass example. You would have a bass guitar track, and let's just make it super simple: a bass guitar track and a kick drum track. And so what you would do is, in the old days anyway, I'm going to try to explain this through wiring. This would be way easier if you could actually see it. But the way this works, so you would take your bass track would have a compressor on it. And let's say that compressor has a sidechain input. In different DAWs, this is done in different ways. In Reaper, you use the concept of track channels. But anyway, your compressor has this regular audio input. So you plug your bass in on one side and compressed bass comes out on the other side. So your input and your output. You also have special sidechain inputs. And what those inputs do is it's the detector listens to that input. So normally you would switch your sidechain to internal if it even has that choice on it. Let's just say that you have a compressor that you could either listen to the regular input or you could listen to the sidechain input. So you would split a signal from your kick track, from your kick drum, and send it to the bass guitar's sidechain input. And before, back in the day, we'd do this with hardware compressors or whatever. You'd mult from your patch bay and send that into the sidechain input of your compressor. And so this particular signal, it's not going to appear in the compressor's output. It just goes to the detector of the compressor. So the kick drum is saying, I'm hitting right now and I'm hitting this hard. And that's what's telling the bass guitar's compressor when to act. So what this ends up doing is every time the kick drum hits, the compressor hears a loud signal, so it turns down, it compresses. And but since the bass guitar is what's actually going through that compressor, it's the bass guitar that's getting turned down every time the kick hits. And especially if you're kind of new in a band, you really are listening for you want the band to sound like the drums are playing the entire band, like the kick drum is playing the bass guitar and the snare drum is playing the guitars or whatever. That kind of sidechained action can actually kind of give you a little bit of that feel. And oh man, I'm sure I've just committed blasphemy or whatever, but it's true. It can happen. But so that's what a sidechain does. It's a way of controlling things from a different signal than the signal that it's actually affecting. So in the other example, like on that Megadeth album, you would have a noise gate and you would have a mult from the kick drum going into the noise gate sidechain input, and the noise gate would actually be on a track that just had a hum. That's all it was, is like a 60 cycle, not a hum, but a 60 cycle sine wave. So it's just like the whole time. And so that thing would actually shut up. And so only when the kick drum hits, it would pop that gate open and you would hear that 60 hertz sine wave or whatever. And so that is, oh wow, this actually went longer than I thought. That's it for this week, and I will see you next week. See you guys later.